Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it. There were so many white butterflies in the lavender in the garden on Saturday, and I took this photograph that I'm going to post. It was really a wonderful sight. My presentation was at Mindspeak was about the world and Africa, and that link is also on the front page of the website if you care to have a look. So it covered oil warfare, covered currency markets, geopolitics, Africa, that kind of thing. Sadia, who very kindly was in the audience that day, took a photograph and tweeted "Full House" at Mindspeak, and it was a great deal of fun. In my view, Friday's non-farm payroll number totally de-risked the dollar trade, and my thinking behind that is in this article that I wrote over the weekend. King Dollar. On Friday, the US released its typically market-moving non-farm payroll numbers. After interrogating the released data, I realized that the US posted the largest 3-month payroll gain going back to 1997. That was plain another era in 1997, and I looked up the music from that year to better anchor that period in my mind. I discovered that Toni Braxton's "Unbreak My Heart", Biggie's "Hypnotize", and Elton John's "Candle in the Wind" in remembrance of the late Princess of Wales were the big hits that year. In 1997, I was running a repo desk, a section in the capital market division in an investment bank in the City of London. The US economy was, of course, the only worldwide economy that the IMF saw fit to upgrade in its January 2015 World Economic Outlook report. Earlier this year, I characterized the US economy as the comeback kid of 2015. My area of expertise in London was in fact interest rate trading. The repo desks I ran operated in what is called the short end or the front end of the yield curve. Think of a yield curve as being a continuum from 0 days to 30 years. The long end or the back end are 10-year or longer maturities. The front end of the yield curve is 0 to 2 or 0 to 3 years. Many years ago, I used to trade the euro dollars very heavily via my broker who was in Chicago, Paul Maggio. And euro dollar futures basically allow you to bet on the future movement of US interest rates. The point I'm getting to in a very roundabout way is that the euro dollar futures curve is assuming a benign, an incrementalist, and a gradualist Federal Reserve. A small rate hike is now priced in for June, and another one by year end. Now, in my experience, the big money is to be made when policymakers are caught flat-footed and the markets grab the steering wheel. An example of such an event closer to home is when the shilling popped over 100 to the dollar in late 2011. This Janet Yellen is a pussycat theory might well turn out to be the right thing, or it might not. Consider the tailwind of $1 trillion of stimulus that is filling the sails of the US consumer amid the tumbling price of oil. So the way I see it is this: Janet Yellen will hike the rate mid-year, and that is a shoo-in. Furthermore, a big headline non-farm payroll print is entirely likely. A number big enough to put the frighteners looks increasingly likely. Then this benign Fed theory will get riddled with bullets. In addition, in the context of the new 21st century oil and currency warfare, and at which the erstwhile community organizer, President Obama, has proven so breathtakingly proficient, and because Merkel and Hollande are evidently bailing out of the hardcore contain Putin strategy, because it's handing a brutal economic blowback back onto Europe, a rate hike or hikes will be serious shock and awe, and a possible coup de grace. Let me take you back even further than 1997 to 1994, when the then Fed Chairman Alan Greenspan raised interest rates at just a quarter point. Within the space of an afternoon, I watched Mexico crumble. In fact, therefore, I commend the financial literacy of our economic team for closing in on the recently announced IMF backstop facility for Kenya. Things could get really messy, and our boys have done good to put in a safety valve. Therefore, my theory remains that you buy the dollar. On that note, I put links up for that song Hypnotized by the notorious Biggie, Toni Braxton, Unbreak My Heart, and Elton John, Candle in the Wind. And also a link for the current euro-dollar curve via the CME. Home thoughts start with Astro Samantha, who on February the 5th said, "Hello, Kenya. Fort Jesus in Mombasa is a 16th century Portuguese military fortification and a World Heritage Site. She is up in a spaceship somewhere and taking these fabulous photographs all over the world." I'll put up a photograph of Fort Jesus that I took on December the 26th. And we learned that the oldest stars in the universe are actually a lot younger than we thought. The European Space Agency has used findings from the Planck satellite, which has taken measurements of the cosmic microwave background light left over from the Big Bang, which is the thing that you see at the greatest distance, and it's uniform except for tiny wrinkles, to reach its calculation. While these 100 million years may seem negligible compared to the universe's age of almost 14 billion years, they make a significant difference when it comes to the formation of the first stars. And that took me back to Rumi. We come spinning out of nothingness, scattering stars like dust. I bought a couple of bottles of Chateau Musar for $32 or thereabouts each to buy airport. And it really has to be the best value red wine in the world. And the person who put me onto it 2 years ago, I used to buy The Spectator, and there was a fellow called Aubrey Moore who used to write the wine column, and he'd always rave about this Chateau Musar, which came from Lebanon and was so unusual. And then I rediscovered it in the airport, and really it is the best value red wine I can think of at the price. And on that note, I'll put up a link for the Lebanese singer Fairuz, and one of my favorite songs, which if you get a chance to listen to the translation or read the translation, it's very powerful. And staying with the Lebanese theme, my friend Lynn Futsong Menuhin. Lynn's father was a classical pianist called Futsong, who liked to watch snooker. Lynn introduced me to his Lebanese friend Nick, who had this bachelor pad in the King's Road and threw the most fabulous parties. And then another time I met Walid Jumblat in the King's Road, and I think he was as astonished that I should recognize him. And on that note, another Lebanese, NN Taleb, took a photograph last weekend, snow above Amiens. And I like this quote of his: "Confidence increases faster than knowledge. The more people know biology, the more they underestimate error biological tail events," he says. I like this headline in the New Yorker: "Inside the world of viral dark matter," makes you think. Political reflections: Israel will do everything and will take any action to foil this bad and dangerous agreement with Iran, Netanyahu said. And I think his behavior in going over the president's head and going to Congress on Speaker Boner's invitation is signaling the imminence of that Iranian rapprochement. He tweeted on February the 6th, "Retweet if you agree, we must oppose extremists with nuclear weapons." Iran's Khamenei says he could accept a fair nuclear compromise, a change of language from him. German Chancellor Angela Merkel: "Progress on Ukraine cannot be achieved by more weapons." That's in direct rebuttal of the US, of folks in the US Congress, including Senator McCain. "The new future of Europe is not found in confrontation with Russia, which runs the risk of continuing escalation We want to shape security with Russia, not against it. Perhaps you think what I say is funny, but I think what you say is funny, said Lavrov. And I think Europe is essentially bailing out and is no longer ready to play hardball with Vladimir. And I think this is what I was writing about on the 12th of Jan applies, that the economic blowback from the frozen conflict in Ukraine with Russia has exacted a price now. Biden, at a conference on the weekend, says it is not the objective of the US to collapse or weaken the Russian economy. I think that's seriously counterintuitive. And I wrote about this. I called President Obama the oil warfare specialist, successfully wrestling the price of crude to below $50 a barrel, and with that affecting a chokehold on Putin's Russia, Venezuela and others as far as afield as Nigeria and Angola. Putin tweeted a meeting with President of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko. I'll put up that image. And Lavrov saying, I don't think our Ukrainian colleagues should hope the support they are receiving will solve their problems. That support is going to their heads in the way it did for Saakashvili in 2008. And we know how that ended. In the Ukraine crisis, Putin is playing strategy, the West is playing tactics, that's Lord Ashdown. Christina Fernandez de Kirchner, of course, caused this enormous furore in China. I'll put up a photograph from that event when she made that tweet. Foreign Affairs is saying King Salman's first move is centralizing power in Saudi Arabia. And then I like this tweet from Summer Rising, Baghdad without a night curfew. It's the little things in life, Iraq. Now, coming back to the international markets, going back to that piece I've written about the dollar, I mean, it was the biggest payroll gain since 1997. The reason I put those songs out there, it makes you understand how long ago the US economy was doing this well. China's trade performance, by contrast, has slumped in January, with exports falling 3.3% from a year ago, while imports tumbled 19.9%. Exports have not produced a negative annual reading since March 2014. Currency markets, the euro was trading around 113.50, it was trading above it, but is back below it now. Hedge funds, other large speculators have turned the most bearish on the euro in more than 2.5 years, as have I. I've been bearish for a while. Dollar index 94.65, I'm bullish about that. Japanese yen 118.80, Swissy 0.9245. The pound just below 152.50, Aussie 0.7768. Remember, it touched 0.7626 on February the 3rd, and that was the weakest level since May 2009. India rupee 62.035, South Korean won 1096.54, Rial 278.25, Egyptian pound 762.64, and the rand 11.50.90. The rand has done actually quite well of late, and I think in part that's because some European money has been finding its way to South Africa. I'll put up a 3-month chart of the dollar index. My target remains 100. Put up a 3-month chart of the euro dollar, which is getting a bounce right now, but I think that's going to parity. As I said on the 12th of January, and I didn't know this because I did work for Credit Suisse First Boston many years ago, it's the worst performing European bank stock outside of Greece, down 22% in January. Gold last around the 1240 level. I think the top for 2015 is now in. Hedge funds most bearish on crude in 4 years after this very strong short covering rally. I tend to agree with John Kilder, who says there have been several periods of buying during this cycle that have led to the bulls getting burned. I think they'll get burned again. I'll put up a 6-month chart. Look, we might go up as high as 55 on WTI, but I think we'll go below 40 eventually. Brent crude, I'll also put up a 1-month chart. A year of decisions after a decade of growth, says Africa Confidential. The big question for Africa's economic managers is to what extent can national and regional trade and production make up for Asia's faltering demand for Africa's commodity exports. Behind that calculation is the search for investment to finance Africa's growing need for the power stations, roads, ports, telecommunications, to enable it to build on its economic momentum. And it's an interesting article about Africa Confidential, actually. And then Africa Eurobond outlook dims as dollar risk rises on Fed, talking about how there was a lot of issuance last year, not expected to happen again this year, more difficult. Someone saying the mindset has changed. We're worried about individual countries' capacities to pay the interest, not only the nominal amount. Investors are going to become far more punishing of the sovereign for any type of fundamental weaknesses they have. The exchange rate risk of sovereign bonds sold by sub-Saharan African governments between 2013 and 2014 threatens losses of $10.8 billion. This is the ODI, but that's on the basis that currency is depreciated by about over 30%. But I think, on balance, we're not going to see much issuance this year, not as much as we saw last year. The South African All Shares had a strong start to the year. It's up 4.55% year to date and at 5.5-month highs. And I wrote about this when I said, the sharp underperformance in Nigeria. The quantum of money coming into Africa is the same, but it doesn't want to go to Nigeria, so it's getting displaced. It's coming into the east here in Nairobi and in South Africa. I'll put up a photograph of the sunset that I took on November the 1st. Ice cream is off the menu as South Africa swelters and blackouts. Tito Bueno saying, I see a recession, a deep one. And this is the challenge they've got at the moment, which they're struggling with, which is the amount of load shedding that's going on. Dollar rand 11.50.90. Egyptian pound 7.62.64. Egyptian stock market, best performing stock market on the continent, up 11.59%. Nigeria all share down 13.48%. The Electoral Commission says it is postponing the February 14th presidential election until March 28 due to security concerns. The chairman of Mr. Buhari's All Progressives Congress described it as highly provocative and a major setback for Nigerian democracy. I wrote about the Nigerian markets on the 10th of November. I said, turning to the markets in Africa, the Naira and the All-Share Index have been wagadooged by the collapse in the price of oil. On the 19th of November, I was talking about the currency going to 200. It's now trading 193.82. Has fallen 17% over the past 6 months. And 12-month forward contracts are at 255. It really is in the eye of the storm. Put up an image that AFP published of Lagos, I think. Ghana Stock Exchange is down 4.92% year to date. The former Mauritius Prime Minister Ramgoolam has been arrested, apparently. I saw this retweet from December the 25th, and Ali Windsor, detention camp in Angola for illegal African migrants. And finally, an infographic that uses heat maps to show population density across the continent. I participated in an interview about the railway with Robin Lee Creel of ENCA. That link is under Kenya on Rich Wrap-Ups. I'll also put up a photograph of the railway crossing at Manyani Gate East. A UAE firm has bought out Isar Petroleum. Isar Petroleum holds a license to import, export and sell wholesale all petroleum products except LPG. Kenya shilling last trading at 91.363. The all share eased marginally off an all-time high, but remains up 3.25% year to date. Mumia Sugar is the best performing share at the stock exchange, up 61.53%. Last time I checked, it was, however, trading lower. Jubilee Insurance touched an all-time high of 520 last week. It's up 14.444% year to date. Bear in mind, the insurance sector is really very, very hot right now. UAP, of course, was the latest news. Kenol Kobil is plus 14.9% year to date, within 4% of a 52-week high. NSE 20 is up 3.29% year to date. Citi put out some research on M-Pesa, And Safaricom saying M-Pesa and data currently 18% and 8% of companies' revenues are to be the key growth drivers for Safaricom. M-Pesa active users are still just 56% of Safaricom's subscriber base, with good scope to continue growing in our view. Citigroup says Safaricom's brand strength, systems, footprint positions the company well to maintain its grip on the mobile money market. I think that's right. The share price is up 3.55% year to date. I took this photograph 1,004 days ago of M-Pesa, and I said M-Pesa, the jewel in the crown, and indeed it is. Safaricom closed at 14.55, record high is 15. We're not that far away, and I do expect to surge higher. I think the market actually is very well positioned to push on. Once again, thank you for stopping by.